If you struggle to have a good night's sleep and tried all the tips and tricks and you're still not sleeping like a baby, this episode's for you. My name is Dara Thomason, and this is Love Yourself Thin, episode 247, Sleeping Support for Weight Loss and Health. Not only for health, but for productivity. I am a professional quilter and a life coach, and most of the women I work with are quilters, but you don't have to be a quilter to work with me, and you could get so much out of the work that I do. When I think about sleeping, and I just coached a 73-year-old client on this issue, I wanted to share this with you because so many of us probably have a complicated relationship with sleep. We were young, we didn't need as much sleep, it seemed, and then we were teenagers. Some of us are sleepers, some of us aren't. We all have our story about sleep. My mom comes from a long line of non-sleepers. My grandma she didn't sleep very much. My aunt maybe sleeps half an hour, maybe 2 hours a night. My mom also didn't sleep very often. She would stay up late sewing and cleaning and doing projects. And so I just thought that was the rule, that you weren't supposed to sleep very much. And then I had 5 kids. So of course I'm up in the night taking care of babies and kids and sick children. And then as a professional quilter, I would start quilting at 9 at night, put the kids to bed, and I quilt till 2, 3, sometimes 4 in the morning. This is not something I'm proud of. I do not wear it like a badge of honor. The more that I understood why I did that, there was a lot of sadness there. Instead of eating a lot of sugar, I would not sleep as much because it took the edge off of all the stress. I have a complicated relationship with sleep, and now I'm so proud of myself. I sleep really well. I go to bed earlier. I'm usually in bed at 10:30, and I'm usually up around 6:30 or 7. And that is a huge thing because for years and years and years, I could not say that. Having said that, I want you to explain, what is your relationship with sleep? What was modeled to you as a kid? What did you do? What were your choices? Did you prioritize sleep? Are you a napper? What was that story? And the more that we can just say it, we have this thing called a thought dump or a thought download. And it's just a way for you to kind of put everything together and see what is your story, because it's nice to see what we're looking for. I'm going to tell you about this client of mine and why this was so impactful. I really want you to stay till the end because I want you to see if you can relate to her. As I'm explaining this, what connections are you having as I'm speaking? This client, 73, says to me, I only slept 2.5 hours last night and 4 hours the night before. She was a midwife, so she writes down a lot of those kinds of that information, like how much did you sleep, calories, all of that, just because of her medical background. She's been tracking her sleep for a long time, and she said, Dara, I don't know what's happening. And I said, okay, well, what do you think it is? She said, well, I think I need to lose 10 pounds because she's shrunk a few inches, and so now her BMI is changed because she's not as tall. And she said, my BMI says that I need to be 10 pounds lighter. So I said, okay, well, let's just pretend that you've lost that 10 pounds and we don't ever have to think about losing weight. What would be the next thing that your brain would work on? Because our brain, we like projects, right? We like to be able to focus on something and work through it. She kind of scratched her head a little and said, my daughter might get pregnant again. I said, okay, what's the problem with that? Her daughter's first pregnancy was complicated. She had a super preemie. The baby was born at 25 weeks, which she decided to spend 5 weeks in the NICU with the baby and her daughter. Even after that, she went back to her daughter's home and helped train an au pair, which was a ton of work. She's not as young as she used to be, and now it's 3 years later, and she's not able to do what she was able to do 3 years ago. And so that really concerns her. And so what she's really concerned about is having those difficult conversations. So we worked through that. What would she say to our daughter? What would be her boundaries? What would she say? And then she felt better. 4 days later, she came to the coaching call and said, there were some more things that were on my worry list that were my brain. I have this really great visual at one of our houses. We had these big, big windows in our basement, and we had these outdoor chickens. We lived in town, but we were part of this urban chicken pilot project. I loved it. And we had these two black and whites, Franny and what was the other one's name? They were very social. And so I would be sewing or downstairs playing with the kids, and they would tap on the window. They're like, hi, hi, do you notice us? We're here. Franny and, the other, I'll have to think of her name. They would just every once in a while let us know they were there. We would acknowledge them and they would go on their way and we would go on our way. And so our brain is kind of like that, where it says, hey, do you know that that possible problem could happen and that could be really bad? And then we would feel really uncomfortable and we should do something about that because we don't want to have that problem. Okay. So whenever that little tap comes on the window, Nellie and Franny, we would say, it's okay. So the other part about this that I wanted to share was that as we looked more at this, because she said to me, I have all the strategies. I've done all the things. I know how much water I should drink. I know how much screen time I should have. I know what temperature my room should be for optimal sleep. My movement, if I do yoga, I'm going to sleep better. About sugar and flour, breathing, comfortable clothes, all of those things. These are all the controllables, and I'm really good at that. So it really bothered her when she wasn't sleeping. I want you to imagine we have two lists. One list is all the things you can control, like how much water you should drink, screen time, temperature, movement, sugar, flour, breathing, comfortable clothing, all of those. But I wanted you to put down things like how you want to react. What are your values? Those are all things you can control. And then we have the other list called things I can't control. I can't control other people's choices, but I can control the way I react and use my values to influence me. I can't control natural disasters, but I can control how I react to them, which means I can have a 72-hour emergency kit, a transistor radio, safety plans if there is this problem and that problem. I could have cash on hand. I can have clean water, all of those things. So now you're taking these things where you feel like you have no control over, and then you put it over in the things you can control. When you're laying in bed and having those thoughts of, I can't control, you can just ask yourself and say, is that true? I can't control if my daughter gets pregnant again, but I can control that I will have this conversation with her and I can set these boundaries. And these are the things that I'm prepared to do. This is the activity of things you can control and things you can't control. One of the reasons why this is really important is because our reaction brain wants to procrastinate, put things off, wants to go into perfection mode. So if I'm perfect, then I can mitigate any sort of problem. Or people please, which means I can live for everyone else, but then I'm the one who suffers. The emergency brain says, I don't know if we like any of those. And that's why working with these tools and doing this work, there's that quote that says, maintenance is cheaper than repairs. So the more that you can be in your brain and really looking at what's going on, this proactive activity is going to be so helpful. Then this is the next step. After you do the list of things you control, things you can't control, is things that I worry about. So we want to have your worry list. So she had the worry about the 10 pounds. She had the worry about her daughter getting pregnant. And then she's had a worry about a family situation that she hadn't thought of in years. And so when you can actually be actively adding to that worry list, guess what happens? You say, hey, I'm here. You're important. You're important to me. I'm going to listen to you. Things that worry you are important. I am going to listen. I am going to pay attention, and I am going to give you airspace. I can't necessarily give you airspace immediately, but because you're on the list, I will get to you. I had like 25 kids in my classroom. And I had a lot of kids with special needs, learning challenges and things. And so I would do the lesson and then we would have time to work on it in class. The kids would be raising their hands, but I didn't want them just to sit there with their hands raised. So I said, if you need to ask me a specific question, put your name on the list on the board. On the board, I'd have need Mrs. Thomason's help. They'd put their name on the board and have a sticky note on their desk. I'd say, write down, what is it that you actually need? They'd say, Mrs. Thomason, I need you to answer question 3. I'm not sure what they're asking. So that way they were very specific about what they actually needed. And the thing is, when you're specific about your question, now your brain can be more specific at finding an answer. Isn't that so clever? I said, skip ahead, work on something else, and then I'll come to you in order of your turn. The more they got into that habit, they started training their brain to be specific in asking those questions. As a life coach, I help you create the kind of life that you want to have. One of the challenges with being a life coach is that for most of our lives, we're taught that we needed adults to take care of us. We needed adults to tell us if we were good enough or not. So we needed all of that external validation. And we don't need that anymore. We're adults. I'm here to help you. And one of my tools that I teach is called emotional adulthood, where it's really learning how to be your own boss for yourself. And this is where you get your power. I am always thrilled to watch my clients truly learn to step into their own power, what they think matters most, and their thoughts, their ideas are always more important than other people. So I'm going to give you one last analogy about sleeping. One of the biggest challenges that I hear from women when they talk about sleeping is they say, I just can't turn off all those voices in my head. So I want you to imagine this. In your brain, you have all sorts of opinions, right? You have nervous Nellie, ambitious Amy, cautious Carol, dynamite Diana. Like you have all these different parts of you. We have like motivational Michelle. Like there's so many different facets in our brain. The problem is we're all part of this. Emily says, we need to do this thing. Organized Olivia has her opinions and everyone's opinion is valid. But you are the CEO of your life. You are the CEO of your brain. Ultimately, you can listen to Michelle and Olivia and all of those characters in your brain. You can listen to them and give them 2 minutes to share their thoughts. Then you say we take everything you said in consideration. But you're the CEO. Sometimes you need to say, we're shutting down the house. My mom and dad used to do that. They're like, the house is shutting down. Everyone need to go to bed. We're just shutting all the lights, closing the drapes, locking the doors. The house is shut down, right? So when you are in that state where motivational Michelle is saying this and organizational Olivia is saying this, you say, I appreciate everything you said. I've listened to you, but we're going to bed now. And I will listen to you tomorrow. Your voice is valid and it matters. Then the last thing, I do need to talk about hormones here for a moment. So if you have a hard time falling asleep, it usually means you're in some form of blaming the government, society, culture, your mom, the environment, whatever's happening. Okay. And that creates a lack of progesterone. If you have no problem going to sleep, but you're waking up at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, you are lacking estrogen. It's some form of you feeling a lot of shame of not good enough. So if you find yourself in either one of those boats, my recommendation, and this is what I've done, and it's made such a difference to me. First, I just say, oh, hello, friend. You're here. Kind of like when I used to get my period. I didn't always love it, but I was like, well, this is part of life. Say, oh, Auntie Flo. My friends used to call it Aunt Flo. Aunt Flo is here. Didn't really expect her this soon, or I didn't really want her, but hey, I'm not going to be rude. So what do? You just take care of it. The least amount of resistance and reaction, the better. You're just like, oh, here she is. This is what we do now. It's the same thing. So if you're struggling with sleep, you say, oh, here we are. We're just having a little bit of struggle sleeping. Okay, no problem. So if it's at night and you're blaming, you say, oh, I'm probably blaming something. What am I blaming? And then you get into curiosity mode, which is actually a really helpful place to be. And then your brain can work on that solution, right? Your brain's always wanting to find solutions. And then if you wake up at 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning, you say, oh, there's still lots of time to sleep. What's going on? You just don't fight it. You just say, oh, here we are. We're just in this state again. What's going on? We're open and able to really see what's going on. How's that feel? I don't want you getting out of your bed and making a coffee or going to eat something or checking your email. Don't do that. This was another tip that I learned being pregnant so many times. Because when you're pregnant, especially near the end, you have to go to the washroom a lot during the night. And it's not always very comfortable. And so I would just not fight it anymore. I'd say, okay, well, I get up and I go to the washroom. I'm not very comfortable, but right now it's our body's time to just rest. So I just embrace that I'm resting. Would I prefer sleeping? Yeah, but I call it a win to just be laying nicely, horizontally in my bed. I focus on the nice soft sheets, the warmth, the comfort of the mattress, and just that I can rest my body. I can appreciate my body and thank my body so much for everything that it does and making a new human. And even when I'm not pregnant, I do the same thing. I say, okay, thank you, body. You do so much for me. I appreciate you. And now we're just resting. So do you see, the more I accept it, the less there's that resistance and fight. It has been so awesome to share this with you. I'm here to help you because I am eternally grateful for life coaching tools. I was always a high achiever, successful. Whatever I put my mind to, I would accomplish it. Every single thing I put my mind to. But it was at an expense. And I was often really exhausted. And I am so grateful for these life coaching tools because I can be successful. I can go for my goals. I can work through things, but I'm not always exhausted. And it is such a happy way to live. So you can still have goals. You can still have aspirations. You can still be working towards things, but you don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have that negative self-talk. You actually have these incredible tools to help support you. So if you are interested in taking this work to the next level, I recommend that you check out my lifetime membership. I have an emotional eating class that's excellent. So if you want to be a part of Quilters Life Summit, of all of that, please go and check us out. It'll be super fun. So many great instructors. And I'm going to be teaching some incredible classes on procrastination, people pleasing, and perfectionism. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.